Assalamu alaikum everyone. A very warm welcome to another session of Ask Dr. Saleem. In this series, we take your questions and we post them to Dr. Saleem. They can be general questions related to Islam, Quran, Ahadith, whatever you have on your mind. Just know that the questions are, you can ask your questions in either English or Urdu. However, the answers will be given in English unless requested otherwise, just so that we can reach a wider array of audience. Also, questions will be taken in the first come, first serve order, unless you've already asked your question, and in which case, for the second round of question, that's the queue that you will be placed in after your first question. And moreover, please, if you have a question, you can either raise your hand or post it in the chat, but do not wait until the last 10-15 minutes. Try to raise your hand or send your questions as soon as possible, just so that we can see how many questions we have and allocate enough time so that everybody gets a chance to ask their questions. And with that all being said, we'll take our first question that comes from Umar. Umar, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा सवाल ये है कि हाइपोथेटिकली जब हम ये बात अगर मान ले हाइपोथेटिकली कि सपोज कि दुनिया में कोई भी गुनाह नहीं होता, यानी सब अल्लाह की शरीयत पे अमल करते, सब भले होते, तो इन दैट केस अल्लाह ताला क़यामत को कब लाता? यानी क्या वजूहात होगी दिन की अल्लाह ताला क़यामत बर्पा करते?
फिर अल्लाह को क्या जरूरत थी बर्पा करने की, क्योंकि ये हाइपोथेसिस है। हाइपोथेसिस जरूरी नहीं कि ठीक हो, और जो आपका हाइपोथेसिस है ये तो मुमकिन भी नहीं है कि ठीक हो। इस वजह से अगर ये हाइपोथेसिस जब सही होगा तो उसके लिहाज से इसका प्रेमिस भी ठीक हो जाएगा। मौजूदा शक्ल में तो इस हाइपोथेसिस की ना कोई गुंजाइश है, और अगर ये सही है तो फिर क़यामत की जरूरत नहीं है।
नहीं, तो यही बात है ना, अगर क़यामत तब तक अल्लाह ताला नहीं लाते जब तक उनका वो जो दोज़ख के लिए जो अफराद और जन्नत है उनके लिए जो नंबर्स क्वालिफाई करते हैं उनके लिए नहीं मिलते, यानी जब
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है। नंबर्स का इशू नहीं है, नंबर्स का तो इशू है ही नहीं है। तो ये तो एक डे ऑफ अकाउंटेबिलिटी है जो अल्लाह ताला ने हर हाल में लाना है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे लोगों को इख्तियार दिया हुआ है, इख्तियार की आज़ादी दी गई है, एक हद तक वो दी गई है, उसके बाद वो ख़त्म कर ली जाएगी और उसके बाद अकाउंटेबिलिटी होगी। असल मामला इख्तियार की आज़ादी का है, उस पर अकाउंटेबिलिटी होनी है।
तो मैं यही कह रहा हूँ ना कि अगर
एक वक्त में हम एक क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं ताकि बाकियों की बारी आ जाए।
ठीक है।
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ammar Rasool, and if you have any follow-up questions, please raise your hand again.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saab.
Walaikum assalam.
Dr. Saab, मैं थोड़ी सी clarification. I wanted to get some clarification about the point of view that the school of thought has about Ghar-e Hira and how Ghamidi Saab. I have also heard his talks in detail about that subject. My question to you is that when he says that Ghar-e Hira is an afsana, what does he actually mean by that? That the Prophet never went to I mean, I understand that he's saying that going to his wife and not being sure and then being taken to a Christian cousin of hers is an afsana. But is he also saying that he never went to Ghar-e Hira and the first wahi did not happen at Ghar-e Hira? Also, my related question is that your school of thought believes that the first wahi was not Ikra Bismi Rabbikal Lazi Khalaq. What is the first wahi in your opinion then? And is there some basis for that belief that it is something else that was given to the Prophet in the first go? Thank you.
Let me answer your second question first.
Okay.
The first revelation according to the Farai school of thought is Surah Fatiha. This is the only surah which does not have a background. This does not have a specific addressee. The addressee, in fact, is God himself, because it's like a prayer. So not only the Farai school, but a very vast majority of exegetes, the Mufassirun, they also have this view that Surah Fatiha is the first revelation of the Quran. As far as the fact that Ustad Ghamidi says that the incident that took place of the first revelation in the cave of Hira is something which is more related to folklore and it has no basis, he is basically referring to the narrative which is recorded in the Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari. And if you go through his detailed lectures on this in the 23 Objection series, he has actually pointed out that there is another narrative which is found in the Sirah of Ibn Hisham, which tells us the true picture that all this incident took place in a dream. And basically, the Prophet was shown or prepared for the first revelation, and everything has a symbolic stance in it, stature in it. And when the Prophet would go to the cave of Hira, it was basically to do itikaf. This itikaf was the sunnah or the practice of his grandfather. And it seems that because the Holy Kaaba was filled with a lot of idols, that the Prophet did not want to go there for itikaf. So his grandfather and his father and the rest of the family would go there for itikaf in the month of Ramadan, and they would be there for a whole month. And so this whole month was the period in which, of course, we know the true understanding regarding what had happened at the cave of Hira. But as far as the whole incident is concerned, it took place in the form of a dream, and I think you can see the Sirah of Ibn Hisham, in which the true picture has been presented. Also, I myself have explained Ustad Ghamidi's view in the form of an article which has been published. You can look it up, and at the same time also go through his 23 objection series, in which he has actually raised a lot of questions regarding the narrative which is recorded by Imam Bukhari, and shown that how it cannot be accepted on its face value.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Abdullah, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा सवाल ये था कि आम तौर पे ये कहा जाता है कि अगर कोई जानबूझ के रोज़ा छोड़ दे या उसे तोड़ दे, तो उसको चाहिए कि वो एक रोज़ा बाद में रख ले और अल्लाह से माफ़ी मांगे। मेरा सवाल थोड़ा स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में था, एक ऐसे इंसान के बारे में कि जो इस तरह से जिसके रोज़े कुछ रहते हों, लेकिन फिर वो जैसे बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो एथियस्ट हो गया हो और वो वापस जो है इस्लाम कबूल करे, तो ये जो पुराने उसके जितने फ़राइज़ रहते हैं, ये उसे मुकम्मल करने चाहिए? जैसे 2-3 रोज़े अगर रहते हैं, तो वो भी मुकम्मल करने चाहिए दोबारा से? थैंक यू।
So it all depends on the circumstances and the situation. One approach could be if these missed fasts or the missed prayers, they amount to, I mean, they have a very large count. So all that person needs to do is just repent and say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, which means that he's now once again entering the folds of Islam, and hopefully whatever he was not able to do in the past will be forgiven. And another approach could be if the number of fasts missed or the number of prayers which have been missed is not that much, and you would like to actually compensate for them. Of course, that too is a possibility. So it all depends on the situation, the circumstance, and who that person is, and how much he would like to compensate. There is no hard and fast.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, after government, whom should we give zakat to first? A poor relative, a maid or gardener who works in our house, a random person who sleeps on the road or sells biscuits on a footpath, or Palestine?
So as far as zakat is concerned, all of it has to be given to the government. There is no question of giving any zakat to anyone else. If the government is collecting it, you have to give all your zakat to the government. However, if you would like to spend more than your zakat, then that is what we call charity or infaq, as the Quran says. And that again is something which is left to your choice and discretion. There are so many heads that might be before you. It could be someone very close to you who might need that, or there could be this whole big issue of Palestine which might be bothering you. So again, there is no specific rule of thumb. Yes, what we have been told and what we can see from the practice of the Prophet is what we call al-aqrab fal-aqrab, which means the people who are nearest to you deserve your money more than what people are who are farther away from you.
Dr. Saleem, they posted a clarification saying that the government collects less tax than zakat. So in that case, do they follow the aqrab fal-aqrab rule?
Of course, if that is the case, that if the government is not, I mean, I'm not sure why would the question arise, because if the government is collecting zakat, if you're talking about the Pakistani government, then they are not collecting zakat in any case. I mean, except for those who would like to give the zakat, which is of the money that is declared in their banks. Rest of the zakat, I mean, people normally give on their own. So I don't find, if they're referring to the country to our country. However, there are other countries in which the zakat is collected by the government, so it depends. But if in principle, if that falls short, if the government is not collecting full zakat for some reason, then obviously what remains should be dispersed in charity, and again the choice is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next questioner asks you to please reply in Urdu. The question is, how do you differentiate between romantic and vulgar posts, poetry, and thoughts?
इन्होंने सवाल पूछा है कि जो फोहश पोस्ट्स हैं और जो रोमानवी चीज़ें हैं इनके दरमियान हम कैसे फ़र्क कर सकते हैं। देखें, इसका बड़ा आसान तरीका ये है कि आपका जो ज़मीर है वो सबसे बड़ा जज है। आई मीन आपके जो ज़मीर है, आपका जो कॉन्शियस है, वो आपको बता देता है कि कहाँ एक चीज़ जो है वो इनडिसेंट हो गई है और डिसेंसी की हदूद को क्रॉस कर गई है, और कहाँ एक चीज़ है जो बिल्कुल सटल है। सटल का मतलब है लतीफ़ हो। रोमांटिक चीज़ें जो होती हैं वो सटल होती हैं, वो लतीफ़ होती हैं, वो शायरी के तरीके पे होती हैं, वो और इस तरह की चीज़ों के मामले में होती हैं, और उनके बारे में कोई ऐसा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है कि उनका इज़हार किया जाए। लेकिन जो फ़ुहश चीज़ें हैं या जो हदूद से मुतजाविज़ हैं, उनके बारे में हम सब जानते हैं और हमारा ज़मीर इसके बारे में सही फ़ैसला देता है।
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, Quran encourages infaq, which is spending in the way of Allah. And to their understanding, infaq and sadaqah are to please Allah and for the sake of success in the life and hereafter. But at the same time, it's said that sadaqah increases life and prevents evil happenings in this world. How do we reconcile between the two thoughts?
The thing is that the sadaqah prevents evil from happening is not true. This is a cliche, something which is commonly understood. There's no such thing as that. Whether you do sadaqah or not, whether you pray or not, whether you indulge in any worship ritual, it's not going to have a bearing on the trials and tribulations that you would be facing if they are destined to come to you. What we can say is that when we are passing through the trials and tribulations, then if we show patience, if we are steadfast, and we persevere in the wake of these adversities and do all good deeds by helping people, by connecting to God, then hopefully it may be that as a result, God may ward away or ward off the adversities that we may be facing. So there is a cause and effect relationship, and that cause and effect relationship is not necessarily that's going to happen, because of course it all depends whether God thinks that as a result of our good deeds a certain calamity should be warded off or not. Because you see, calamities do come for our own betterment as well. At times they come to make us more aware of what goodness is. At times they come so that we can come closer to God. At times they come as a punishment for a mistake that we might have made. So they have their own philosophy. But whatever their philosophy, when we face such adversities, then the best way is that we still thank God for His favors and show gratitude to Him and be patient. And it may well be, not necessarily, that as a result, God, when He sees our good behavior, He might ward them off. So you see, it's all causal, it's all dependent on how we behave and how God thinks that He should, in response, deal with us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We'll start the second round of questions. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Dr. Saab, very quickly, I wanted to ask about this hadith that has become sort of like a lot of scholars are discussing it, where the Prophet joined Zohar, Asr and Maghrib, Isha prayers without any uzr or without any reason. And when asked why did he do that, he said that I wanted to create ease for my ummah. My question regarding this to you, sir, is can we also sort of like pray Zohar and Asr together during Asr time and Maghrib and Isha together during Isha time, or do they have to be prayed together if they are done so, during the time of the first namaz? So Zohar and Asr during Zohar only and Maghrib and Isha during Maghrib only. This is my question.
As far as combining the prayers is concerned, it could be done at either of the prayers. It could be combined at the first prayer, and it could be done at the second prayer as well, whether it's Maghrib or Isha or it's Zohar or Asr. As far as the narrative is concerned, there is no such narrative which says that the Prophet combined the prayers without any reason. People have actually come to misunderstand a certain narrative in which it is said that he actually combined prayers without rain and without the fact that he was traveling. So people thought that this is the only way. I mean, that prayers should be combined. It doesn't mean actually that prayers have to be combined just for these two reasons. The other reason is that the alternative explanation of this narrative is that he did combine the prayers for other reasons as well. So it's not that these two reasons are being discussed. or pointed out. It is said that he combined the prayers not just for these two reasons, but for other reasons which are not mentioned in the narrative. So
I see.
there has to
So,
be some reason. There has to be some reason. Without any reason, we cannot combine the prayers.
oh, I see. I see. Because this is being sort of like said by many scholars these days that, what this means is that basically we can combine prayers, these two prayers specifically, without any reason.
No,
And so what you're saying
there
is
has
that
to
it
be
is
some
not the
reason.
case. What's
There
that?
is no such thing. Otherwise, you see, the Quran has made it amply clear. It says, "Inna salata kanat al mu'minina kitaba mawquta," which means that the prayer has been made incumbent upon the believers on its appointed times. So the appointed times have to be followed in normal circumstances. There has to be some excuse, some pretext on the basis of which you combine prayers. It's not something that must be done or should be done in normal circumstances.
Hmm. Sir, if I can very quickly finish this thought, there are also many people who say that even the Quran is saying that there is the Fajr prayer, then there is the morning prayer and the evening prayer. So even the Quran is designating only 3 times. I don't know if that is correct and what your point of view on that is.
So
Thank you, sir.
again, see, the timings of the prayer and the number of the prayers are not something which the Quran discusses. It does not need to discuss that because the prayers are an established practice of Prophet Abraham and they existed before the Quran was revealed. So the Quran only needed to rectify certain mistakes that were being made and to point out certain religious innovations or bid'ah that had entered the prayer. Otherwise, they were already, people knew when to pray, what to pray, and what are the timings, and how many how many number of prayers have to be offered. So the cardinal mistake which people make is that they think that the prayer has to be derived from the Quran itself. The Quran is not the source of the prayer. The Prophet Abraham and previous prophets, they offered the prayer, and the Quran just needed to make certain amendments or point out certain mistakes. Otherwise, it should not be thought that we have to derive the prayer and the directives which relate to the prayer from the Quran.
बहुत शुक्रिया sir, thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब। डॉक्टर साहब, मैंने गामदी साहब से बहुत बार सुना है कि ये जो बनी इसराइल के ऊपर जो अजाब आता है क़यामत तक, ये इसलिए कि उन्होंने अपने कवनेंट अल्लाह के साथ पूरा नहीं किया। तो ये सवाल ये पैदा होता है कि जो भी हिटलर ने किया या फिर बुख्त नसर और भी कौमों ने इस बनी इसराइल के साथ जुल्म किया, उन्हें एग्जाइल किया, परसिक्यूट किया, क्या यही लोग और अक़वाम जो बनी इसराइल पे अजाब किए, वो क़यामत के दिन खुदा से अल्लाह ताला से कहेंगे कि हमें इस हिसाब से हमारी एहतसाब ना होना चाहिए क्योंकि हमने आपकी स्कीम के मुताबिक इनके ऊपर अजाब मुसल्लत किया। अगर ये सही है तो ये फिर भी अनजस्टिस नहीं होगा? यानी बोथ
नहीं,
वेज
ऐसा तो वो नहीं कह सकते। ऐसा वो
नहीं
नहीं
तो
कह सकते
नहीं
कि
तो
इसलिए वो
ये
किया तो
तो
उन्होंने
अल्लाह
ज्यादती है।
ताला की
ये तो
स्कीम के
अल्लाह की
मुताबिक था
स्कीम
ना।
ये थी कि किसी ना किसी पहलू से उनको मार पड़ेगी। अब ये है कि आपने अपने आप को पेश कर दिया इस काम के लिए, तो इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि आपको इसका लाइसेंस मिल गया और आपको की बख्शिश हो जाएगी। आपको तो अपनी ज्यादतियों की सजा मिलेगी। ये तो अल्लाह ताला ये बता रहे हैं कि जैसे दुनिया में मामलात होते हैं, जैसे आप देखें ना, इसको छोड़ दें, फ्लड्स आते हैं, अर्थक्वेक्स आते हैं, वो भी अल्लाह की मंशा से आते हैं। अब यानी वो खुदा की मंशा से जब आते हैं तो उनका मकसद दूसरा होता है। तो यहाँ पे अल्लाह ताला ने वही आजमाइशें जो नेचुरल डिजास्टर से बर्पा करनी थी, अगर वो अल्लाह ताला बंदों के जरिए से बर्पा करते हैं और बंदे जो हैं वो ज्यादती करते हैं, तो ये अलग से उनसे तो पूछा जाएगा। ये तो अल्लाह ताला सिर्फ ये कह रहे हैं कि मैं उनकी इन ज्यादतियों को काम में ले आऊंगा अपनी स्कीम के मुताबिक। जो मेरी स्कीम है वो उससे पूरी हो जाएगी। इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि वो जस्टिफाइड है। फर्ज कीजिए कि वो ये ज्यादतियां नहीं करेंगे तो अल्लाह ताला उसका और जरिया ढूंढ लेंगे। ये तो सिर्फ ऐसे ही है कि जैसे उन्होंने एक जो गलत काम करने की रविश अपना ली थी, तो अल्लाह ताला ने कहा कि इससे मैं इस तीर से 2 शिकार करूंगा। एक ये कि दुनिया में जिनको सजा मिलनी है वो उनको मिलेगी, दूसरे अक़वाम को, और इनको तो वैसे ही मिलनी है आखिरत में, बनी इसराइल को। तो ये तो सिर्फ स्कीम का बयान है, ना कि अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से किसी रायत का।
शुक्रिया।
Thank you very much. Abdullah, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा स्पेसिफिकली सवाल एक चीज़ से मुतालिक है, क्योंकि मैं पहले जब 18 साल से कम था, मैंने एक स्कॉलर से पूछा था कि हमारे पेरेंट्स जो इंटरप्रिटेशन कर रहे होते हैं दीन की, हमें वो ही फॉलो करनी चाहिए या अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग को देखकर करनी चाहिए। और एक स्पेसिफिक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये इसलिए मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि जैसे वितर की नमाज है, آپ یہ جانتے ہیں کہ ہمارے یہاں پاکستان میں زیادہ تر وہ ایک مخصوص طریقے سے پڑھی جاتی ہے. تو میں نے اس پہ ایک حدیث پڑھی تھی کہ مغرب کی طرح وطر نہیں پڑھنا چاہیے. حضرت عائشہ کی حدیث تھی. تو اب وہ ہمارے والدین اگر ہمیں بتاتے ہیں کہ آپ نے اسی طرح سے پڑھنی ہے، تو لیکن ہمیں لگتا ہے کہ ایسے نہیں ہے، نماز دوسرے طریقے سے پڑھنی چاہیے، تو کیا اس صورت میں ان کی ہمیں نافرمانی کر کے جس طریقے سے ہمیں، اور یہ صرف وطر کے حوالے سے نہیں، جیسے رفع الیدین کے حوالے سے یا امام کے پیچھے فاتحہ کے حوالے سے، مختلف چیزوں کے حوالے سے کیا ہمیں اس میں ہونا چاہیے، کرنا چاہیے؟
دیکھیے،
تھینک یو.
دینی معاملات ہوں ان سب میں آپ اپنے والدین سے سیکھتے ضرور ہیں، کیونکہ ظاہر ہے کہ آپ ان کی گود میں پڑے ہیں، پہلے مرتبے میں آپ انہیں کو فالو کرتے ہیں، لیکن اس کے بعد جیسے جیسے آپ پہ سچ واضح ہوتا ہے یا آپ پہ اوپر معلوم ہوتا ہے کہ بھئی دوسری بات جو ہے اس کے مختلف وہ زیادہ صحیح ہے، تو آپ اس کے مکلف ہیں. اس میں والدین کی نافرمانی تو زیر بحث ہی نہیں ہے اور نہ ہونی چاہیے. والدین کی جو نافرمانی کا معاملہ ہے وہ اس سے متعلق ہی نہیں ہے. اور میں تو یہ بہت دفعہ ایکسپلین کر چکا ہوں کہ پورا قرآن اس سے خالی ہے کہ ایک آیت بھی ایسی کہتی ہو کہ آپ نے والدین کی فرما برداری کرنی ہے. ہر جگہ والدین کے بارے میں جو بات بھی آئی ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ آپ نے ان سے حسن سلوک کرنا ہے. نافرمانی کا ذکر پورے قرآن میں کہیں بھی نہیں ہے. اور اس معاملے میں تو خاص طور سے یہ ہے کہ جب آپ مذہب کو سیکھتے ہیں تو یہ تو ایک نیچرل پروسیس ہے کہ آپ نے پہلے مرحلے میں اپنے والدین کو دیکھا، آپ نے ان کو فالو کیا، لیکن جیسے جیسے آپ کی شعور یا اپنی آنکھ کھولی، آپ کے معلومات میں اضافہ ہوا اور آپ پہ اپنی غلطی واضح ہوگی، تو آپ کو لازم ہے کہ آپ اس غلطی کو ٹھیک کریں کہ وہ یہاں آپ نے معاملہ جو ہے وہ خدا کے ساتھ کرنا ہے. اور والدین ہوں یا آپ کے اساتذہ ہوں، آپ کے بہن بھائی ہوں، کوئی بھی ہوں، وہ رستہ دکھا تو سکتے ہیں، لیکن ایسا نہیں ہے کہ ان کا رستہ جو دکھایا ہوا ہے وہ لازماً ہمیشہ ٹھیک ہی ہوگا. جب بھی آپ کو معلوم ہو کہ وہ رستہ جو انہوں نے دکھایا تھا یا جو آپ کو بات بتائی تھی وہ درست نہیں تھی، تو آپ کو خود درست کر لینا چاہیے. اس میں کوئی نافرمانی کا سوال پیدا نہیں ہوتا.
جی، اور یہ وطر کے حوالے سے کیا یہ صحیح میری انڈرسٹینڈنگ تھی اس حدیث سے کہ واقعی ایسے نہیں پڑھنی
میں نے
چاہیے
ایسی
یعنی؟
کوئی حدیث نہیں پڑھی. آپ وہ حدیث مجھے بھیجیں، میں دیکھ کے بتا سکتا ہوں. حضرت عائشہ کی ایسی کوئی حدیث میرے علم میں نہیں ہے. اگر آپ وہ مجھے دیکھ سکیں تو میں دیکھ کے بتاؤں، بھیج
جی
سکیں میں دیکھ کے بتا سکتا
اچھا، اس میں بیسیکلی صرف میں چھوٹی سی بات کروں گا. اس میں یہ تھا کہ دوسری رکعت میں جیسے ہم تشہد میں مغرب میں بیٹھتے ہیں اور پھر اٹھتے ہیں واپس، تو
ہوں.
وہ اس میں یہ بیسیکلی بتایا جا رہا تھا کہ دوسری رکعت میں آپ تشہد میں نہ بیٹھیں، یا تو تیسرے میں ڈائریکٹلی کھڑے ہو جائیں، یا دو پڑھ کے سلام پھیر کے ایک علیحدہ سے
ہوں.
پڑھ لی جائے. اس
ہاں،
سوال
یہ دونوں طریقے ٹھیک ہیں اور نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے دونوں اڈاپٹ کیے ہیں. اور یہ کیونکہ ان کے ہاں وطر کی جو نماز ہے وہ تہجد کی نماز کے طور پہ پڑھی جاتی تھی، کیونکہ اصل میں وطر کی نماز تہجد ہی کی نماز ہے. تو آپ نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کے طریقے اگر آپ دیکھنا چاہیں تو وہ بیان ہوئے ہیں، وہ 4-5 طریقوں سے وہ پڑھتے تھے. یہ دونوں ٹھیک ہیں.
پھر اور یہ طریقہ بھی ٹھیک ہے کہ دوسری رکعت پہ تشہد میں بیٹھ کے کھڑے ہو کے جیسے مغرب میں ہم کرتے ہیں
بالکل
صرف اتحیات کے بعد، وہ
بالکل
طریقہ بھی
وہی
ٹھیک ہے؟
وہ بھی ٹھیک ہے، بالکل ٹھیک ہے وہ.
چلیں، جزاک اللہ.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, can a government by force collect tax other than zakat on the assumption that the government is also collecting zakat?
No government has the authority to collect anything other than zakat. It cannot forcibly extract money other than zakat from its citizens, unless, of course, they do so out of their own free will. I mean, as a government can tell or inform its citizens that for certain reasons, maybe it could be an emergency, maybe some disaster might have befell the people, like, for example, some calamity, and the zakat money is no longer sufficient for the government to take care of that. So all that it can do is make an appeal, but it cannot forcibly extract any amount of money other than zakat from its Muslim citizens.
Thank you very much. Naushad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Dr. Salam Alaikum. I have a very odd question today, Dr. A human is one of God's finest creations, we assume. Why is it that the sperm which gives birth to a human being is considered to be so abhorrently dirty or untouchable? Why is it? Because it is from there that a human being comes into being.
If you're referring to the Quran, which says ma'im maheen, which means a despicable liquid or something which is very trivial and ordinary, I mean, it is what is being told here is not. It does not refer to the fact that the grand creation would result. What the product itself would be is something very grand, and the process or maybe the ingredient of that grand product is something which is very inferior. What it is referring to is that it is something very trivial before God. I mean, it's not something of a problem for God to create human beings. For this, all that he needs is that he has created human beings themselves, and they procreate. And this procreation, the substance of this procreation is something which is. I mean, the word maheen is not referring to something which is despicable. It is referring to something which does not need any special arrangement from the Almighty. All that is being pointed out here is that to create human beings is such an easy task for the Almighty that an ordinary liquid uh, accomplishes the task. So, and this word often occurs if you look at the Quran in relation to the mushrikun who would say that creation is something very difficult. How can God create a second time? And so they are being told that, well, if he could have created the first time, and that too from such an ordinary liquid, how could he be unable to do so again? So it is in this context that this creation whole process is described. So it in no way is meant to in any way undermine the fact that the thing itself is something that is despicable. It's basically in relation to what people would believe that this is said.
But sir, najasat, it is considered to be najis.
Okay, yes, that if you're referring to that particular aspect, that it is called it's something which is filthy.
Yes.
Obviously, this is because of the fact that it comes out from the same place as the urine does. So that is why anything which are hind or the front part ejaculates because of the fact that they come out from things which are filthy and dirty from inside. That is why it is called najis. So that najis part is because of the fact that it comes out from from that passage from which the urine comes out. So it's not that it is najis in its composition in any way, that it creates something very grand. It's only the fact that, I mean, had the Almighty maybe created some other passage for it, it would not have been called so. So my understanding is that the filth which is associated with it, or the najis part, is because of the passage from which it comes out.
While we are on it, Dr. Saab, what do you have to say about recent statement by Dr. Zakir Naik that the urine of a cow or those animals that we eat uh, is not najis in its full term?
No, again, if he's referring, I think he's not referring to the cow. He was referring to the camel because of a certain narration, if I'm not wrong, and that narration has been misunderstood. And the urine itself of the camels is used for treatment of certain wounds, and it's not meant to be drunk. It's not by not understanding a certain narrative that the translation has been made that the urine of the camel can be drunk because it's pure. That's not the case. If you look at the narrative, we've done some work, it has been published from our institute as well. You'll see that its proper translation is that in certain diseases in Arabia in those times, and even today maybe, the urine of the camels was used to treat those wounds.
Not of the cow.
I haven't heard any such thing. I haven't heard.
Right.
And if you refer any particular narrative, I can look it up. But I haven't heard anything regarding the cow.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Grateful.
Thank you. Akram Bhatti, please go ahead.
Yes.
अस्सलाम सर।
वालेकुम
सर मुझे पूछना है कि शायदा सब से कौन कौन सी गलती का हो जाता है अजाला, जो नमाज पढ़ते वक्त कुछ गलतियां करते हैं, तो कौन कौन सी गलती से सजदा सब हुआ? जी।
So as far as this sajda sahab is concerned, which means prostration in lieu of any mistake, there is a simple formula that has to be kept in mind. That of course the except for the part of the prayer which is absolutely incumbent. For example, you could not forget Surah Fatiha, which is the most important part of all the 4 rak'ah. Other things that you tend to forget, if you are able to make them up, what you should do is that you should make them up. I mean, make amends for them and then offer sajda sahab. But if for some reason it's not possible to make amends, then you just do sajda sahab. So to give you an example, if you have if you have, let's say, prayed 3 rakat, or you've offered 3 rakat, and then you have said your salam. So now, of course, within the prayer, you cannot make amends because the 3rd rakat was offered and you had said salam. So now what you'll do is you'll make amends by offering the 4th rakat as a separate independent rakat and also offer sajda sahab. And had it been the case that, for example, you have offered 5 rakat, for example, so now at times we do offer more than 1 rakat. So now we just cannot rectify this because you cannot reduce the 5 to 4. The 5 have already been offered. So in such a case, only sajda sahab is fine. So the simple formula is that whenever you make amends, you make amends and do sajda sahab. Whenever you are not able to make amends, then you just do sajda sahab. So in the 3 rakat prayer, you were able to make amends because you could have offered 1 more rakat. So you offered 1 more rakat and you offered sajda sahab. But when you prayed 5 rakat, now you cannot make amends because 5 cannot be reduced to 4. You've already offered them. So now what you do is you just offer sajda sahab. So wherever you're not able to make amends, you just offer sajda sahab, and wherever you are able to make amends, you make amends and then offer sajda sahab.
So sajda sahab, like if you made 5th rakah, and so you made the first sajda sahab, the 5th rakah, if you remember
Yes.
doing it. But what if you salam pher li, phir aapko yaad aaya to phir?
If you have already said the salam and now you remember that you have prayed 5 rakats, that doesn't matter.
Yes.
You can do sajda sahab after salam as well.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Shukriya.
Baran Nashur, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Sir, my question is about when you are, for example, you are in a marriage and your wife is on her menses. Some women have experienced like longer menses than others. And for example, how do you determine the menses is really over? Like, does the bleeding need to completely stop, or is it like after a certain amount of days?
So this is something which normally women themselves very well know because they are trained by their mothers or elderly women of the family. And this is how, I mean, in normal circumstances, what you do is that you count the number of days. If the days, if the hairs or the menstruation exceeds the number of normal days, then a woman normally tends to know that this is not the blood of the menses, it is the blood of istihaza, as the Quran, as the Hadith calls it. And istihaza is a form of a ailment. So normally women know that. But if there is any confusion, the best way would be to consult a gynecologist, and the gynecologist will tell you very easily whether the blood which is coming is of the menstrual cycle or if it is because of the ailment of istihaza.
Yeah, but also, for example, I've heard cases online from certain women that experience menses for like 10 days. And like what I've learned from biology is that it's like...
As I said, this is at times you have this abnormality in which there is an extended menstrual cycle. At times it is not an extension of the menstrual cycle. The blood is because of some other reason. So the best way is to consult a gynecologist. In most cases, women, they tend to know because you see the color of the menstrual blood is very specific. And for extended cycles, the color changes. Similarly, for istihaza, the color changes. So normally they are trained to their own eye tells them. But whenever there is some confusion, the best is to consult a gynecologist.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, रियाकारी से क्या मुराद है? और जब हम कोई अच्छा काम करते हैं और कोई इंसान हमें अप्रिशिएट करता है तो हमारी इमेज उसके सामने अच्छी बन जाती है, तो हम लोग कोशिश करते हैं कि वही अच्छा काम करते रहे या बुरा काम नहीं करे ताकि इमेज खराब नहीं हो. तो क्या ये चीज रियाकारी में आती है?
So riyakari, of course, refers to show off. If you want to boast of something, if you want to be ostentatious, this is what riyakari means. And when someone praises you for some good work that you have done, the best way is to say thank you, and also say alhamdulillah to God. And in future, you should do what you should do because of the natural urge that you find yourself or that finds yourself yourself into it. But for any other reason, just to make that person happy, or maybe just to make that person feel that you still deserve the same comment, one should not do that. That is obvious. So we have to be careful that when we do something good, it's not to earn the praise of someone who is watching us, or maybe to someone whom we are describing what we have done, but for the sake of God only. So as much as we can dedicate the good deed that we do for the cause of God, that is the best thing.
So very related to that question is another question that asks, if the voluntary thing that we're doing makes our parents happy, but we don't have to do it, it's Islamically, it's just voluntary, should we continue to do it just to keep parents happy?
So, I mean, again, this is situational. At times, making them happy would be something important because some incident might have occurred and you'd like to please them more. Maybe you've been rude to them. Maybe something bad has happened and you'd like to compensate for them. At times, it's not the right attitude. I think this is an area in which you have to trust your gut feeling, and your gut feeling tells you what to do. If we cannot give a comprehensive solution or an answer to this question. As I said, it is situational. I just described one situation, and in some circumstances it will be fine, and maybe others it will not be so.
Thank you very much. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Dr. Very quickly, I want to ask a follow-up question about your answer regarding the Waqia of the first Wahi at Ghar Hira. Now, I just want to very quickly ask you about, because the Quran also says that when the Prophet was coming down, he saw Hazrat Jibreel in clear sight, and wherever, at the horizon, and wherever he looked, there was Hazrat Jibreel, if I remember correctly. So is the proper narrative then like this, that he was in itikaf at Ghar Hira during Ramadan, and then he slept, and during the sleep he saw a dream in which Hazrat Jibreel visited, gave him the first wahi, announced his prophethood. Then he woke up and he came out and he saw Hazrat Jibreel in clear sight. Is that how we should understand that this is what happened?
I mean, you have to first understand that the narrative is something which is describing a different situation, and the Quran is describing the actual situation of the revelation of the wahi itself. So the narrative is basically a dream, and the dream is preparing the Prophet for his future appointment. And we know from the dream itself that once the Prophet woke up, it was then that he had met Gabriel. So it does seem that this is the right sequence. And the Quran actually describes in Surah Najm the first two instances of wahi. One Najmi Iza Hawa. If you start off these verses, you'll find that the first instance of wahi occurs when the Quran says Fakana Kaaba Kausaini aw Adna, that Gabriel came very near to the Prophet and he Fa'auha ila abdihi ma auha, and then he revealed to him what he revealed. And then it said Walakad ra'ahu nazlatan ukhra. Then the Prophet saw him a second time, and in that case he saw him from the horizon, and it's not that Gabriel had come down to him as was the case in the first instance. In the second instance, he was there on the horizon, on the sky, and he was extending well beyond that. And the Prophet saw him, and then the Quran says that in both cases he clearly saw the angel, and there was no faltering of his sight. Ma zagha al-basaru wa ma tagha. So the Quran is describing the actual first and second instance of revelation, and the narrative itself is telling us that the Prophet was being prepared for revelation, and for this he had seen that dream, and once that dream had ended, he met Gabriel. As I said, for more details, if you look up that article which I just referred to, it'll tell you in more detail how the two are interconnected.
So very quickly, if I can ask you, what is the dream about? Like, if he saw Gabriel, Hazrat Jibreel, the first time in reality,
as I said, to prepare him that he is now going to be commissioned as a prophet of God. It's like making him realize that now he's going to be called to this position. So it's like, you see, divine revelation, then they come to you in the form of a dream, and when the dream is also symbolic, they are meant to make you aware of the fact that you are not now going to be given a very big responsibility.
So in the dream as well, it was Hazrat Jibreel visiting him and telling him that he is now going to be getting prophethood.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Naeem Afridi, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So regarding when messengers came to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam uh, on that incident. So were they pious human messengers or were they angels? Because historical events show that whenever Wahi was coming through Jibreel alayhi salam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was invisible whenever he was bringing any message. So is this human form of messengers or
Yes, I mean the Quran has made it clear in Surah Zariyat. Then when the angels came to Abraham, they were in human form, and however, when they did not eat the fish or the meat that was presented to them, the cow meat, then Abraham thought that maybe they are angels because because he thought that angels don't eat meat, and so this question arose in his mind at that time. But uh, before that, they came in normal human shape, and that's how Prophet Abraham was also accustomed to them. He talked to them. And when he came back with that meat, only then that he did realize that if they are not eating, then maybe perhaps they're not human beings. So that was through their attitude. Otherwise, in their own form, they came as human beings.
so they were not like pious human people came?
They were normal
Those
human
were
beings.
okay.
They were normal human beings.
No, but they were angels, right?
Yes, they were angels,
Okay,
of course,
okay,
but they posed themselves in the form of human beings.
okay. Because the other event shows whenever Allah's
Of
message
course, they were
comes,
angels. I mean, they did
they're
not come in
invisible.
they did not come in their own form. They came in human form. So angels coming in human form.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If angel come with revelation, they were invisible, but in this scenario, they came in human form, and that's why
Yes,
visible to his wife.
yes, and of course, there was no question of bringing any revelation. So they had come for a particular purpose. They wanted to give Abraham the glad tidings of a son, and
Right,
they also talked to him that they are going to his nephew Lot, who lives in a nearby area, so that his nation could be punished.
right, right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Our next question asks, is there any prohibition, according to Islam, to keep interacting with your fiancé after an engagement in a casual way with decency?
As long as you maintain the norms of gender interaction and decency, which are mentioned in the Quran, there's absolutely no restriction or prohibition.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, सॉरी टाइम है, आ गया हूँ।
नहीं, कोई बात नहीं।
डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा सवाल ये है कि कुरान में जो आता है कि हमने खुदा ने इंसानों के अंदर फूंक दी, और इसी हवाले से हजरत ईसा अलैहिस्सलाम को रूहुल्लाह बुलाते हैं। तो ये दो वहदतुल वजूद और ये जो ईसाइयों का बिलीफ है 1 into 3 और 3 into 1, ये इस दोनों आयत से मैच नहीं करते?
नहीं, नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं करते।
नहीं,
वला
क्योंकि
तकूलू
खुदा ने खुद
सलासा।
बोला कि हमने इंसानों के ऊपर रूह फूंक दी है अपनी रूह से, और हजरत ईसा अलैहिस्सलाम की
वो तो सिर्फ ये बताया कि जो अल्लाह ताला कहते हैं कि जो रूह इंसान में डालते हैं, जिसको जिंदगी की अलामत कहते हैं, वो अल्लाह ताला कहते हैं वो मेरे खास अमर से आती है, वो मेरे खास हुक्म से आती है। इतनी सी बात है कि अल्लाह ताला इंसान को जब बनाते हैं तो एक उनका जिस्मानी वजूद होता है, उसकी जो फिजिकल एग्जिस्टेंस होती है, और एक उसका रूहानी वजूद होता है। तो अल्लाह ताला कहते हैं वो रूहानी जो वजूद है वो मेरे फूंक से आती है। वो कैसे आती है इसका तो हमें पता नहीं है, उमूर मुतशाबिहात में से है, लेकिन जो रूह हमारे इंसानों में आती है या किसी भी इंसान में आती है, वो अल्लाह के अमर से आती है, और यही प्रोसेस उस वक्त भी हुआ है। तो ये उसका बयान है, ना कि तसलीस के किसी पहलू का।
तो ये सूफिया जो वहदतुल वजूद का जो रिलेशन बनाते हैं इस आयत से, ये भी गलत है?
बिल्कुल बेबुनियाद है। वहदतुल वजूद का कोई लिंक नहीं है इस चीज।
ठीक है, शुक्रिया जी, थैंक यू।
Thank you very much. Akram Bhatti, please go ahead.
सर अपना उस्ताद गामी साहब फरमाते हैं, उन्होंने फरमाया कि लेक्चर में कि जो आजकल नस्लें हैं उन लोगों की, वो नूह के 3 बेटों से हैं, हाम, साम और जाफस। मैंने आप दोस्तों से जिक्र किया तो कह रहे कुरान पाक तो कहीं नहीं लिखा हुआ, तो क्या इसका इशारा कहीं है कुरान पाक में कि उनकी औलाद
Quran is not mentioned in the
एक
Quran.
बेटे का जिक्र है जो डूब
It
गया?
is mentioned in the Bible. If you look at Bible history tells us that Prophet Noah had 3 sons. Of course, the fourth one was gobbled up by the waves. He was killed. But the other 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, these are the 3 sons. And so they are the ones who repopulated the earth after the storm. And they inhabited different parts of the world. So this is basically Bible history.
अच्छी बात, शुक्रिया सर, जज़ाकल्लाह।
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question, we'll start taking a lot of the chat questions and then we'll come back to raised hands if we still have time. So the next question asks, income tax is compulsorily deducted from our salary by the government. Furthermore, there are many direct and indirect taxes that we pay, like sales tax, property tax, etc. So if the cumulative sum of all of these taxes becomes more than the due zakat, should we still be paying zakat?
You don't need to pay zakat. If the cumulative amount exceeds the zakat liability, in fact, that balance amount can be used for future zakat as well.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, must Israeli products or other imported products be boycotted? People argue that some companies directly contribute to Israeli forces. Many people say one must boycott brands. However, on the other hand, the Muslims managing such products, like KFC in Pakistan, will bear loss if we boycott.
I mean, always remember that all these things relate to strategy. I mean, it's not something which has any bearing on any religious directive. It's not that the Quran or the Hadith or the Sunnah is telling us that you have to follow this particular path. This is basically a strategy that people have thought of because of the heinous atrocities which Israel is perpetrating. One can agree with this approach and one can disagree with this approach. So it's basically an analysis of this approach that has to be done. For example, it can only be effective if it is done at the level of all the Muslim countries. For example, if 57 Muslim countries get together and they say with one voice that we will not in any way entertain any products of Israel, and especially of the companies which are I mean, in communion with them. Remember, all of them are not, they don't have the same view as we think that they have. And secondly, also, we should also think that if these products are life-saving for our own well-being, and what good is boycotting them going to do when the brunt of the effect is going to be cast on the Muslim Ummah itself? So you see, these are all things which are based on strategy, and they have to be analyzed whether they are effective or not. If they are not effective, we should not do it. If they are effective, then maybe we can adopt them. So strategy also is one thing in which people might differ. We must not make it to be something which is the Quran or the Hadith or the purport of the Prophet himself. It's like something that we human beings chalk out. And again, that has to pass through rigorous analysis. But I, for one, think that it is not going to be of any consequence, and it does not seem to be the right way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, it's regarding witr. Is the way if witr is this way if praying witr is correct, that in the third rak'ah after al-Fatiha and joining one surah, we raise our hand as in takbir and then recite the qunut, generally how Hanafis do?
That's correct, yes. The Hanafis do it this way and it is fine.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question comes from Baran Nashur. Please go ahead.
Dr. Saleem, I want to ask a follow-up question on my previous question because, for example, I've also heard that, for example, when a woman gives birth, that for 40 days you are not allowed to have sexual intercourse as well. And as I already said, some women experience menses for like 10 days, which might lead to a lot of hardship on the couple because they are not allowed to have any sexual intercourse during that time. So is there like anything you can do as a married couple during that time that might alleviate this hardship? Or can you say like if the bleeding is very minimal that it becomes allowed? Or can you give me some wisdom on this topic?
Okay, so even if there is a small amount of bleeding, one should not engage in this sexual intercourse. Other than that, any other form of sexual release is fine. So except for having intercourse, other forms of sexual contact, other forms of self-release or mutual release in which you are not engaging in sexual intercourse is okay.
Okay, so everything else is allowed except for
intercourse. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Ammar Rasul. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. My question very quickly, sir, is about the wall that was this supernatural wall that was built, by this important character in the Quran to protect the, good people from Yajuj Majuj. And at one point in time, sir, you might have mentioned, I think you did, if memory serves me right, that basically Yajuj Majuj are these sort of like Far Eastern races. They could be Chinese or Japanese, and now because we are living in the end of times, it is their time of ascendancy and power. So, sir, my question is that has that wall been broken now? Does that wall not exist anymore? Did it lose its power of rebuilding itself constantly at some point in time?
So that wall was built by Cyrus the Great, who was called Zulkarnain by the Quran, and that was centuries ago, long time ago. And that was just a temporary thing, not temporary in the sense that it was there for a few years. It was there for a couple of centuries, and then it was razed to the ground by various calamities and by other happenings. So it was just a barrier between people who were attacking another lot of people, and Zulkarnain or Cyrus the Great was just trying to help out the people who were oppressed. So this is nothing divine in its origin. It's nothing of any sort. All that the Quran was trying to point out in Surah Kahf, where this incident is mentioned, is that such was the power of Zulkarnain that he was able to notch up these feats. And in spite of doing such miraculous things, he did not become ungrateful to God. He was a very grateful servant to God. So that is the whole scenario that is being accounted for there. So, and during this whole account, what is being said is that such was his might that he made this big barrier, and he was able to save one nation from the onslaught of another nation. And this could have made him very proud, but instead of being proud, he was very grateful to God. So that is the context. So there is nothing divine, nothing special about that wall, except the fact that it was a huge wall and it was meant to protect one people from the onslaughts of another people.
So, sir, this, is it written in the Quran, or is it just our false belief that this wall had the capacity to rebuild itself? Like during the
There's no
day,
such
they
thing.
would.
No, that's not at all. It's not true. These are all, stories, and it's all folklore. And there's no such thing in the Quran. The Quran says it was a solid wall, and it was made of metal. The metal was, it was literally scalded at a very high temperature, and then it was poured into that area so that it could solidify and become a very, very hard. It took the form of a very hard rock.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Abdullah, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर, मेरा ये सवाल है कि बतौर एक बेटा, जैसे अगर किसी शख्स को महसूस होता है कि उसके वालिद उसकी वालिदा के हकूक़ को तल्फ़ करें किसी भी फॉर्म में, और कोई बात करने वाला नहीं है, तो क्या उसे अपने वालिद से खुद बात करनी चाहिए इस बारे में? वो ज़ाहिर है उसके वालिद गुस्सा हो जाएंगे और वो सारी बात है, लेकिन अपने तौर पे जितना अदब बंदा कर सकता है उसके मुताबिक, क्योंकि वालिदा की वो बात करनी भी तो ज़रूरी है।
So you see, it all depends on the situation. If you think that you are in a position, yes, you should do that. A son has an obligation towards his mother, and if he is the only person who can salvage a situation, then yes, there's something that he should do. But if he thinks that the father is not going to listen to him, or the matters would end up even worse than that they are, he could adopt some other way. For example, he might engage some other relative which has influence on the father. So there could be a number of ways that this could be done. But yes, if it is possible, it should be done. And not because of the fact that the person is your mother is even more something that you should do. But this should also be the case for any other relative who is oppressed, and you are in a position to bring out bring that person out of oppression, because of you can have influence on the oppressor, then this is something you should do. And all the more reason that you should do it for your mother, because of course there's no closer relationship than your mother.
सर एक इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में एक सवाल था कि गीबत के हवाले से स्पेसिफिकली, और इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में था कि अगर आपकी वालिदा आपसे आपके वालिद के खिलाफ बात करती हैं और आपके वालिद आपकी ज़ाहिर है उनकी एब्सेंस में, तो उस पे आपको कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहिए?
So you see, you have to understand that backbiting does not mean that you confide or someone confides with you regarding the shortcomings of another relative. So the definition of backbiting is that you speak ill of others, and the intention of speaking ill is to belittle that person, is to disparage that person. So that intent has to be there. If that intent is not there and you're just talking about the bad habits maybe, and the reason is that either you cannot vent your emotions yourself, or maybe because you'd like to rectify them, or maybe because you'd like to just have a easy way out so that you could just release your emotions. So that is an entirely different thing. Unless the intent is to disparage the person whose faults are being discussed, it does not come under the category of backbiting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We have time for just one more question. Shoaib, please go ahead. For the remaining participants, we can join tomorrow towards the end of the textual study of the Quran, and towards the end we can take some general questions. And besides that, we have other series that go on throughout the rest of the month. On Saturdays, where you can, like Islam Study Circle, where you can come with your general questions. Shoaib, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Actually, I asked this question, I think, a few months ago, but I think my mind is still not clear. I'm just asking about Hukukul Ibad and Hukukullah. Is there any clear reference in Quran that Hukukul Ibad will not be forgiven until that person forgives or the account has been settled, or otherwise that account will be settled on the judgment day? I'm particularly asking reference from Quran. Thank you.
Yes, the Quran has given very clear references, because at a number of instances it says that whenever you commit a sin, then the words of the Quran, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَأَصْلَحُوا. So you have to repent and you have to reform the matter. You have to set it right. So aslahu actually refers to the fact that the person that you have offended, you must seek an apology from that person. So the Quran never says taba, which means that you just repent. It says taba wa aslaha, that you repent and then you mend the whole matter, then you reform the whole situation. So this actually refers to the fact that you must seek an apology from the person that you have offended.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Thanks all for joining today's session. And thank you for coming with all the wonderful questions. Inshallah, we didn't have time to finish taking all the questions, but again, you can bring your questions towards the end of tomorrow's session, which is same time, same Pakistani time. Just remember, for the US viewers, because of daylight savings, it'll be an hour earlier. The timings have been posted on WhatsApp. And other than that, you can join during the Islam Study Circle series, or wait for another month until the next Ask Dr. Saleem session, inshallah. So with that being said, see you all tomorrow, inshallah. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for giving us your time and answering our questions. Inshallah, see you tomorrow.
Thank you.